Can breathe a big sigh of relief, at least for now, for a little while. So the senators, in the end, they passed a last-minute deal last night that funds the government through the middle of November. House is expected to follow suit on this deal. So the battle over disaster aid, what was holding up the bill, and Senate Democrats say that they hope that the stalling on the whole thing to be complete is over. Watch this.
It is hard to see how the House Republicans could reject this proposal, given the overwhelming vote it received in the Senate, receiving a majority of both parties, which doesn't happen on major bills that often these days.
No, well, that's for sure, right? It sure doesn't. So joined now by Republican Congressman Bill Huizenga. He is on the Financial Services Committee and does not support this latest deal. Congressman, welcome. Good to have you here today.
Hey, thank you, Martha. I appreciate the opportunity.
You know, I think people are tired of hearing about deadlines and then hearing, oh, well, actually, it turned out that we could have funded FEMA for another week or so. We could have had a little more time to figure this out. What's going on?
Well, my point exactly is we've been going through this. You know, this was avoidable. It was unnecessary. But it's the Senate. You know, it's like drama is us, is their name. And I tell you, it really is frustrating when you're sitting on that other side when we know that, once again, no tough decisions were made.
So we know that the FEMA disaster aid was trimmed a bit and spending was also trimmed a bit, and that's how both sides got together on this deal. Should we take away from that, you know, it's possible that both sides can make some compromises, that you can figure out a way to pay for disaster aid by cutting into spending?
Well, there's a lot of people that say this is new ground. For the first time ever, we have actually set a precedent here of taking some money out of other places in the budget to pay for these things. And I equate it sort of like if your car breaks down and it's at the shop and you know you got to get your transmission worked on, are you still going to go out to eat this weekend or go to the movies and those kinds of things, or are you going to reprioritize? And that's really what it's about.
But is that truly what we saw happen here? And if it is, why aren't you happy with the deal?
Well, this is better. Frankly, the Senate lowered that FEMA funding by $1 billion. They chose to keep money in there for Solyndra and some of the other things, but it is going to lower it $1 billion. And it's not about taking care of earthquake victims or flood victims. It's because we want to do that. I want to do that. We've seen those things here in Michigan. We've seen it around the country. But it's about prioritizing and making sure that we're not spending more than what we're taking in, and it's progress.
You said funding for Solyndra. Do you mean for green jobs or for the company Solyndra itself, which is now in bankruptcy?
Well, programs like
the
program that Solyndra had, and everybody's tired of hearing about the $16 muffins out of the Department of Justice, for their conferences and those kinds of things. And the bottom line is, Martha, it's about responsibility and transparency and accountability for this government, and it simply isn't there.
What kind of concessions in spending were made?
Well, for what we were doing in the House?
Yeah. Okay.
Well, first of all, we looked at the program, and first and foremost, I don't think it was enough. It was a partial paid for, not a full paid for. But one of the areas where they were taking that money out of was a program that many argue benefited the Detroit 3, having to do with advanced vehicle manufacturing. And we know that GM, Ford, and Chrysler all were neutral on that bill, despite what our friends in the Senate were saying, because they had accessed the program. It had been okay, but it hadn't been the home run that they had thought about.
Yeah.
But that was one area where we were going to take $1.5 billion.
All right, well, let's hope we don't revisit this in the middle of November and we can get somewhere before then. Congressman Huizenga, we thank you very much for being with us today.
I appreciate it, Martha. Thank you.
What about 19 minutes past the hour now? What does America need to learn from history?